Manchester, England.
All right, Tokyo!
To the scenic shores of Chicago.
Are you ready?
I'm sorry, homie. We don't do no happy songs.
I don't know how to tell you this, but
That's right, this is Tapes You Leave Behind. I am your host, Brian, joined as always by my co-host, Emerald.
Hiya.
And again, we're diving into a new topic. So we've been kind of jumping around different stuff. So we've looked at some history, we've looked at some covers, we've done some playlists, and last time we had done a rather deep dive into one song is, a history thing. And then we were looking at a Red Hot Chili Peppers song, I believe, for our theft series.
Yeah, I
Maybe
think it was Give It Away, right?
Unintentional borrowing. And I talked about how the Chili Peppers, I was surprised by kind of how deep, not deep, but like actually like, coherent and like singular thought the song actually was, kind of looking at it. And then we were watching the recent Fire Aid, and the Chili Peppers are playing on there, and everyone's like, "Oh, you should look into, doing like a breakdown of a song." And I'm like, "Well, what better place to start than with the Chili Peppers, since we talked about them before?" And we already saw they were some sort of, there was something hidden in there for a band that's so maligned. So we're gonna start off our new series that we have affectionately titled "Lyrical Autopsy," where we're gonna go line by line through a song and break down what are they talking about. And I think one of the fun things about this is looking at something like the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Spoiler alert, we're going to look at Californication, the title track of their 1999 release. Is you really have to listen, right? Like, how many times have you heard people say like they've heard a song 100 times, but they've never actually listened to the lyrics? They can't sing it back.
That happens to me.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, and doing this, I think is kind of interesting to dive into that. Like, you've heard a billion times, maybe a phrase or two, but every lyric, maybe unless you're like trying to learn it, or a lot of times like when you're like a teen or something, I know it's my favorite song, I know the words or whatever, but then after you've heard 10 million songs, you don't know all of them. You sure don't remember them.
Well, not even that, but also like you know the words, but you don't actually like process them.
Exactly.
Right? Like,
yeah. No, and that's
you know what they're saying.
Exactly. That's what we're gonna do here is kind of process them. Like, right? Like, okay, Californication. What's Californication mean? Well, let's get right into it. At the beginning of the song, the first line: "Psychic spies from China try to steal your mind's elation." Already, right off the bat, there's a lot happening there, isn't there?
That's fire.
Psychic spy from China. So there's a few things to dig into that. First off, what is a psychic spy?
A spy with supernatural.
Yeah, some sort of like
powers.
ESP perception, baby. We're talking paranormal right off the bat. Your mind's elation, your happiness. So it's like they're suggesting there's spies in China trying to steal your happiness out of your brain. Weird.
Yeah, and right, it's like all psychically. Like it's such a weird line because it's literally like they're doing that like finger to temple like reaching across the Pacific Ocean.
Now this is a fun one, right? Like, because first and foremost, let's just go. This goes for everything in this song as well as any other song we cover like this. We're just kind of grasping what they might mean. Like, I don't have Anthony Kiedis here to break down everything he says. And it's worth noting, like, really, a song can be anything to anybody, and part of that is the lyric can mean anything to anybody. So, full disclosure, this isn't the end, all be all of the exact breakdown of what this means, but it's at least an attempt to explain things that it could mean.
Yeah, and it happens a lot where, like, the artist might even mean it in a different sense than what a lot of people take it as. Like, famously, Michael Stipe doesn't release his lyrics because he's like, he basically says that it doesn't matter what they literally say, it matters what they like mean to you or what they say, like,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the first things I ran into when looking into this is sort of this concept that's kind of maligned now, but it's the idea of like the foreigner with magical powers.
Yeah.
Where you see that a lot in movies where it's like some guy from like, ancient China where they have like mysticismal magic powers. Something people say is like, oh, Anthony Kiedis is tapping into kind of that old thing, like, oh, they're Chinese psychics stealing your mind power, which look kind of cool. And fits with Hollywood, right? That'd be a good Hollywood theme, like a lot of classic Hollywood movies, like kind of the ancient Chinese mysticism and magic. But I found something slightly more interesting while I was looking into psychic spies from China. So if you're not aware, like the U.S. has had attempts at ESP programs. The Russians have had attempts at ESP programs, effectively government-run institutions to figure out, can we create psychic spies? And hilariously enough, in like the 70s and 60s when the U.S. were doing this, Communist China used that as an example to be like, look how stupid these guys are. Russia and America are dumb because they're wasting money trying to figure out if psychic powers are to be believed.
Yeah.
I found a document released from a Freedom of Information Act in 1998. Seems extremely relevant since the song came out in 1999.
Yeah.
About psychic spies in China.
That's incredible.
It was a paper written by a man by the name of Marcello Truzzi entitled China's Psychic Children. That was originally published in 1985. And I mean, I found this literally on like CIA.gov.
Okay.
It was like a PDF that I read through where this guy, Marcello Truzzi, he was an American sociologist and academic, college professor, researcher, who you could call like, the biggest pain in the butt to any like kind of fringe topics. He was like a professional debunker who would go in and look into these topics, really in a hope, I think from what I understand, to prove it real, but he's like grounded, right? So he's like, it's not real. I'm going to go in and scientifically test this and see if it's real.
It's like Mythbusters.
Right. And in like 1979, there are these two children in rural China just wrestling.
Okay.
And then while they were wrestling, one of the kids was like, ah! And the other one's like, what's wrong? He's like, I don't know, I saw these two weird characters in my head. And then he said they are, and the kid's like, no way. And the other kid pulled out of his pocket a packet of cigarettes, and they had those two characters written on them. Which is hilarious, because again, 11-year-old children.
Yeah.
But,
right.
and so like, whoa, how did you like see that? And he's like, I don't know, this came into my mind. And this became this like big news story. Because then they tested this kid, and he showed the ability to do this kind of repeatedly in China. And then this grew enough attention that the government is like, all right, we've been making fun of these kids, or like the American stuff, but hold on. What if we have psychic children here in China? And so this kicked off a search of the country in which they found 10 other children who allegedly had psychic abilities. And they brought them all like into a group to test and prove that, hey, these kids are psychic.
Wow.
And they were sort of touted as like, psychic children.
Yeah.
Well, Marcello went over there, tested them, and found these kids did not at all have psychic abilities. Though the Chinese government said that he was just an American over there to prove China's lying.
Propaganda.
Yeah. So, while I highly doubt that's what Anthony Kiedis was inspired by for Psychic Spies for China, it's interesting that at the same time of the song, there was a release of some, government documents on Psychic Spies. And I mentioned we wouldn't necessarily have Anthony Kiedis here, but I actually have where this line came from Anthony Kiedis.
Oh, okay.
He said that he heard this being yelled by a lady on the street.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, crazy lady in LA was
That's
yelling at him that
cool.
psychic spies from China were trying to steal her mind's elation. So
she was tuned in.
So she was tapped into
the
it.
government's releasing of the documents.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, and moving on to line number 2. And little girls from Sweden dream of silver screen quotation.
Okay.
This is another one. So this is kind of showing that worldly view. And that's what these first few lines are actually trying to establish in the reach of Hollywood. So they mention like China's trying to steal your stuff, Sweden. Effectively it's showing Hollywood having this branching out into the world.
Sure, but what does Hollywood have to do with China's psychic spies?
I mean, they don't actually, other
Yeah.
than what I mentioned earlier about the idea of like the magical foreigner.
Yeah.
But I think it's more of just to show two lines about different countries on other sides of the world and then loop them into California. In this case, the idea of, a little girl in another country on the other side of the world isn't dreaming of being on Swedish television. She wants to be in Hollywood.
Right.
She wants to be a famous movie star or something.
But too bad. Shirley Temple's stealing those jobs.
Yeah, too bad for you, little Swedish girl.
Swedish girl can't be Heidi. It's only Shirley Temple.
Your best bet now is to develop ESP powers, and hopefully the government takes you in.
Why? For Stranger Things.
Yeah. And following that up, and if you want these kinds of dreams, it's Californication. So as I said, like, he's setting those two up to say, hey, come to California.
Yeah.
Californication. This is the first time he's used that term. And I think we should try to unpack that alone. Californication.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if that existed.
I didn't find anything for it. Now that said, it's a very easy play on the word California.
Right.
And there's a couple things on there, right? The first one being Californication. And I think this kind of goes, this is more of the meaning he's meaning right now in the part of the song. And that's kind of a Californication of the world. Like everything's kind of becoming California. Yeah. Such a strong hub of culture, like a cultural sphere that extends everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the Red Hot Chili Peppers, so there's a second meaning to this that's much more literal, Californication.
Oh, yeah.
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 I'm not surprised.
Yeah. It's the Red Hot Chili Peppers, fornication, sex, love making, every song if you look hard enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's in there.
It's a fun pun. That's probably why they named the album that.
Yeah.
Jumping to the next verse, it's the edge of the world in all of Western civilization. So I said, the cultural sphere, it's the edge of the world, it's the coolest thing in the world, all of Western civilization. That's Sweden, that's the UK, Australia. Everywhere is looking at the groundbreaking, where everything cool comes from. The sun may rise in the east, at least it's settled in a final location.
In a what?
Final location.
Final?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's a dumb way of saying the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. What's in the west? California.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, facts, right? Could
Yeah.
also mean, if you want to get real deep, I don't think he is here. The U.S. started on the east side of the country and came to the west.
Right.
So, like, while the east may have been the cultural hub in the beginning,
yeah.
eventually they all moved to L.A.
Right.
It's understood that Hollywood sells Californication.
Okay.
Again, cultural export, pure and simple. He's just saying this is where it comes from. As I mentioned, fornication's big in Red Hot Chili Pepper lyrics. So are drugs.
Yes.
So he's literally just, hey, you can come buy some here. That's going to become stronger as it goes on.
Yeah, or it's also kind of the imagery of like production,
Mhm.
right? Of,
Yeah.
Like, Hollywood sells this
That's
product,
dream.
Which is,
This image.
Mm-hmm.
Pay your surgeon very well to break the spell of aging.
That's incredible.
Plastic surgery.
That is an incredible lyric, actually.
It really is. Yeah.
Holy cow.
Celebrity skin, is this your chin, or is that warrior waging? Snarky. So there's two things to take into this line. We'll start with the first part, celebrity skin. I don't think that's a coincidence that's a whole lyric.
I was going to say a whole reference.
We could do a whole episode on songs that are taking jabs at Courtney Love, and I would imagine this is intentionally using that term at
And
the time.
vice versa.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Courtney Love taking jabs at the world.
To quote her, I don't think there's any slander towards her in this one. I think he's just curbing the line from theirs.
Yeah.
But it's funny that it's there. And then is that your chin or is that warrior waging? It sort of looks like a slander thing, like ooh, botched plastic surgery job.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I'll tell you, as I mentioned Fire 8 earlier, they'd cut to the audience sometimes. Some of those older people. Ooh.
Well, it's just difficult.
It is
I
difficult.
think also, like in the the late '80s and early '90s, I feel like plastic surgery was still like becoming very, very, very popular.
Yeah.
And so, if they're older and they
Mhm.
got it done a long time ago,
Starting to
I'm
look
not
bad.
surprised. Yeah.
All right, a bit of change in the flow of the lyrics here. Firstborn unicorn. What do you think? What do you think of that one?
Well, we know they like mythical creatures.
Yeah.
So I feel like he probably just made it up to fit in. But unicorn also means like unique or like a unique person. Like
Right.
you find a unicorn.
Yeah.
It's usually
Right.
referred
Yeah. I mean, unicorn, purity, greatness, typically has like magical properties, kind of the unicorn associated with. So he's suggesting it's the first one who has a pure, unadulterated greatness.
Right.
But maybe there's a little more to this. Now, I have no proof that he's referencing this, but it fits with the rest of the song so well that I kind of think that he is. And that's a book called The Killing of the Unicorn. Dorothy Stratton, 1960 to 1980. That's a book about a porn star who gets murdered.
Oh. It's like a murder mystery?
I mean, it's a true fact. Like, it's actually, like, it's a true crime novel.
Oh, it's a true crime. Oh,
Yeah.
shoot. Okay.
That uses that same sort of idea. I'm talking about it, like the unicorn as, this kind of pure person coming into, the Hollywood sphere, entering the porn industry, and then eventually getting killed by her estranged husband / manager.
Damn.
Now, I don't know if that's what I think he's going at here. Maybe.
It lines up really well.
Especially with the next line of the song, hardcore, soft porn.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And also, it's like, I feel like it's something that was probably huge news.
Probably, yeah. Yeah, definitely for like when he was in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Like as a kid.
Yes, exactly.
And I think this line is really just to juxtapose with the last one, right? We talked about unicorns being pureness and creating what's the opposite of that? Porn.
Yeah, I know. I love that line. It's like oh God, my brain's tired after work. What's that word?
Like juxtaposition.
Yeah, or like
For contrast. Oxymoron.
That's
Hardcore soft porn.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a good one. Then cut to the chorus. Dream of Californication.
Yeah. Dream of Californication.
A lot to take in there. We already covered Californication. Could be, California dreaming. It's always been sort of a reference of the greatest California.
Right.
They repeat that 4 times. Marry me, girl. Be my fairy to the world. Be my very own constellation.
Okay.
Hey, baby, I love you. You're my world and literally my outer space.
Well, and then it's like constellation is like star.
Stars, yep.
Hollywood stars.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Quick to love there, too.
Yep.
No, like, be my girlfriend. Straight to marriage.
Yes.
Follow it up with the line, a teenage bride with a baby inside, getting high on information.
So this is like the lyric that I think of when I think of this song because it just sounds like absolute nonsense.
Yeah, but it's interesting because it kind of goes with the line before it. And if you want to like kind of dig into Hollywood and some of the darker sides of it, he's talking about, a teen girl maybe coming in. They typically get chewed up by the machine.
Yeah,
it's totally used in like terrible ways, like
Mhm.
Harvey Weinstein-esque sort of things.
Mm-hmm.
Could be
That would
that.
be
I have
sex
no
crimes.
idea what in the world getting high on information means in this context, though.
And what kills me too is like the way he delivers it is so like somber
Mhm.
and serious.
Yeah.
It's like, Anthony, what does that mean?
Yeah, I'm just gonna say getting chewed up by the machine is what he was going for at this one.
Yeah. I mean, getting high obviously
Yeah.
is like, but I don't really know what he means by information.
Yeah, it's kind of the opposite of Hollywood typically, unless it
Yeah.
literally is what I said, like sort of like information in the sense of like goss or
Mm.
scandal.
Yeah, or just like consuming, right?
Yeah, too
It
much
could
consumption.
Yeah. Could be like a metaphor for
Another-
just
another
consuming.
Hollywood problem.
Right.
And this one kind of looping back to the first line there. And buy me a star on the boulevard. It's Californication. Obviously,
Easy
Hollywood
peasy.
Boulevard, Walk of Fame,
Mm-hmm.
the stars. But he talked about Be My Constellation earlier. He's keeping that space theme going, looping back and
Yeah.
forth.
Kinda.
You'll get me famous.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Because that's what he's saying. Buy me a star on the boulevard.
Yes.
Yeah, not you,
Yeah.
me, baby.
If it links with the previous lyrics,
Yeah.
yes. But I could
Yeah.
also think, because isn't that how you get a star?
Yeah.
'Cause you have to buy
You physically
it.
had to buy it, yeah.
Just funny.
Well, we're keeping the space theme going for the next line. Space may be the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood basement.
This is the second lyric I think of the most when I think of this song. I love it. I think as a kid I didn't even understand the context, which you'll be giving right now.
Look here,
but-
people. The moon landing is fake. What are the shadows? Where are the stars at? Why is the flag waving? Stanley Kubrick made 2001: A Space Odyssey the year before it happened, and it looks just like that. This is the truth, people. They don't want you to know. They never made it to the moon. We just had to prove the Russians we had the ability to get it done.
It doesn't help that Buzz Aldrin's like, I never went to the moon
Look
as
here,
an old
kid,
man.
You don't know.
He's like, we never went there. How am I supposed to know what the moon looks like?
Yeah, selling lies. Again, kind of like keeping that idea, right?
Yeah.
Does Anthony Kiedis think we didn't go to the moon? Probably not. But it fits with the song.
Yeah, it's a very popular conspiracy theory that ties into Hollywood.
Yeah, get comfortable for this next one.
Okay.
And Cobain, can you hear the spheres singing songs off station to station?
Yep. There's a lot. There's a lot in that one.
So I've actually looked at this line previously in the past before because I was like, what in the hell does that mean? The biggest striking reason for that is and Cobain. So the only Cobain I know of is Kurt Cobain.
Of course.
And he had connections to Red Chili Peppers, so I think for sure he's talking about Kurt Cobain here.
I mean, he has to be because of, like, just the culture of
Yeah.
the time.
Oh,
like,
for
Kurt
sure.
Cobain died
Like 5 years ahead of it. Yeah.
a few years earlier.
And now that's when it gets fuzzy. What in the world does the rest of that mean? Can you hear the spheres singing songs off station to station? And I would like to note, station to station is capitalized in the lyrics.
It's clearly the David Bowie
So I think it's a reference to
album,
the David Bowie album.
But I do not know
But
sphere
what is a sphere? Now, when I look up spheres, like specifically this line, I come up with people online in forums and stuff suggesting that the spheres used to be a nickname for the Foo Fighters. Now, what I find weird about
What?
that is I can't find a single person
Wait.
outside of this song who calls the Foo Fighters spheres.
Right.
So I think that might be horse like crap, except for one fact, and that's the name of the band,
That's
the
what I
Foo
was
Fighters.
just gonna say.
Now, if you don't know what a Foo Fighter, this is the most conspiracy theory episode we've ever talked about. We've talked about ESP, psychic children, faked moon landings. Now we're about to talk about aliens.
Yeah.
Foo Fighters are a nickname by World War II pilots for UFOs that they would see. And Emerald, what did they say they looked like from their planes?
They look like glowing
They
spheres.
looked like spheres. So here's the weird thing to that. I think that might actually be what he's saying. Cobain, can you hear the spheres? Because Dave Grohl of Nirvana would go on to be in the Foo Fighters singing songs off station to station. Now that, though, is another pain because I can't find the Foo Fighters covering any song off station to station.
When did the Foo Fighters become to be?
Like
Was
95.
It, directly? Okay. So it was right after.
So they were definitely huge by the time this song came out in 99.
Huh.
Or huge enough in the same sphere the Red Chili Peppers are in where, hey, Cobain, you're dead. Your drummer is now one of the biggest bands in rock.
Yeah.
Now that said, I don't know if they played a bajillion shows.
Oh. What about this? In January 1997, Grohl played a few songs with David
With Bowie. So that's interesting. It's solo Grohl playing with them. Yeah, I mean, that could totally be it.
50th
birthday party.
concert,
Yeah.
which would have been a big deal.
Which would have been a big deal. Saw that. So there you go.
Maybe.
I mean, there's a lot of things you got to jump through there.
It sounds like they played Hello Space Boy.
Okay, well, that's
I don't
not
believe that's
off
off
of Station to Station. No, I mean, really, the only songs off of Station to Station that I would imagine the Foo Fighters would cover would be the title track Station to Station and, Golden Years. Maybe TVC 1-5, but I think that's too weird for the Foo Fighters.
Yeah.
That said, I think that is what this is referring to, and there's actually a decent piece of evidence for that, and that's when Taylor Hawkins died, drummer for the Foo Fighters.
Mm-hmm.
The Red Hot
Pretty
Chili Peppers
recently.
were on tour, and shortly after that, while playing Californication, he changed the lyrics of the song to say, "And Hawkins, can you hear the spheres singing songs
What?
off station to station?" So I think that actually
Wow.
does sort of confirm the theory that this is indeed about the Foo Fighters.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
What?
That's
I don't know if this has
pretty
anything to do with Californication. I think this is just a weird, fun line that he came up with and then jammed in there, though.
I think it's like
Except maybe Cobain as somebody getting, celebrity-ified to death.
yeah, that's an
Um,
understatement.
which fits with kind of some of the other themes in here of, the toxic Hollywood culture.
Right.
For something less hard to dig into, the next line, and Alderon's not far away. It's Californication. Emerald, do you know what Alderon is?
Alderaan has 2 sons.
No, it's tattooing.
Damn
But you
it.
got the movie right. It is indeed a Star Wars reference. Alderaan is the planet Princess Leia is from. That the Death Star
Oh,
blows up in the movie.
the one where like they have like Congress and stuff.
They
No.
they have senators from there. That's Coruscant that has the actual Congress.
God
Man, we're getting
damn
real
it.
nerdy
I'm
now
so
too.
sorry. I don't know.
No. It's only. I mean, it's in some of the newer material, but in the old one, it's the one where Princess Leia is like abducted, and they're like, "Where's the rebel base at?" And she like lies to them, and then they blow up her planet, and that's the planet they
Wow.
blow up.
Wait, is it when in the prequels
hmm
when they like have a picnic? Is that on Alderaan?
I don't think they go there. Maybe they
Oh.
do though. I don't think it's in the prequel movies.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know my space planet.
Born and raised by those who praise control of population. That's a dark line.
Born in what? Say it again.
Born and raised by those who praise control of population. Population control, aka eugenics.
Woof.
Nazis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say another conspiracy theory, but that one's not.
No, yeah, he's definitely suggesting, the dark, dark, dark underside of Hollywood and just kind of celebrities and ignoring, a lot of skeletons in the
People,
closet of kind of the
yeah.
old guard.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of those that slips by, right? You're not really paying attention. You don't catch what he's saying because he's wording it kind of spaced out, right?
Right.
Praise control of population. Sounds weird. It's not a phrase anybody would ever really say.
Right.
Well, everybody's been there, and I don't mean on vacation.
Oh, wow.
It's Hollywood.
Yeah.
Maybe not actually Hollywood, right? Going to kind of the down and out feeling of some of it. I think he may just be meaning kind of getting chewed up by the Hollywood machine or feeling like down and out, cast aside. Not literally going to Hollywood.
Oh, you know what I interpreted it as?
Uh-huh.
I interpreted it as like everyone's been there, meaning like everybody's watched movies
Right.
or consumed Hollywood.
That's true
media.
too. Yeah.
Like they've
Definitely.
been
You've been to
there.
Hollywood, but you've
Yeah.
never been
You've
to
never
Hollywood.
been there on vacation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
That little girl in Sweden.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then we go back to the chorus: unicorns, porn, dreaming Californication.
Yep.
Well,
Classic.
destruction leads to a very rough road, but it also breeds creation.
Ugh.
Different, optimistic-ish kind of line here. Maybe.
Kind of. Yeah.
This could be a fun one for California, and it definitely just sets up the next 2 lines, I think. Because what he's saying is like things, destruction leads to problems, but it also then, forces you to then fix said problems.
yeah. Right.
So that a door closes and a window opens kind of thing.
Mhm.
And an earthquakes are to a girl's guitar, they're just another good vibration. California, if you're not familiar with, is on the Ring of Fire and gets a ton of earthquakes. It's suggested about 10,000 earthquakes a year, which is about 35 a day in California.
Jeez.
Though only about 2 or 3 earthquakes are large enough to cause moderate damage to structures that are in a magnitude of like 5.5 or greater. Which, it's a lot still.
That's a ton.
That's a ton. So, earthquakes, Californian, girls' guitar, rock and roll.
That's right.
Just another good vibration, strings vibrate, but more importantly, that's a Beach Boys allusion there.
Mhm. Yeah. There's a lot in that.
So there's a lot taken. That's good. That's a good line.
Mhm.
And tidal waves couldn't save the world from Californication.
Very good follow up.
That's a good follow-up. So we're keeping with the destruction idea. You got the rocks, shaking, and then on the flip side, it's on the coast.
Yeah.
Tidal wave, even that couldn't get rid of Californication because it's so perverse. It's beyond the city itself.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
It's not just,
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a Warren Zevon song where he talks about being at a bar, and if the earthquake causes California to slide into the ocean, that bar will still be there, and you still have to pay his tab.
Yeah.
I think it's sort of the same idea here. Like you can't ever check
Get
out of
away
the
from
Hotel
it.
California.
God. Yeah, and
Weird number of songs that sort of reference the same idea of it's unleavable.
and it's keeping up
Unkillable.
with the imagery.
Yeah,
of,
exactly. Yep.
Actual natural things that
Yep.
happen, earthquakes and tidal waves. Very good.
Pay your surgeon very well to break the spell of aging. Look, plastic surgery came back.
Isn't that like the same thing?
Let me check real quick. It may be the exact same line.
I'm pretty sure it's like at least very close.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pay your surgeon very well to break the spell of aging.
All right.
But then this is different. Sicker than the rest, there is no test, but this is what you're craving.
Huh.
I think this is a drug reference. But
Yeah,
as
right.
California, as the
You
drug,
can't stop. Yeah.
but as every single member of the Chili Peppers have had some sort of problem with drugs, it's very direct.
Plus,
in this
yeah,
case, yeah.
it's Hollywood.
It's Hollywood.
Drug issues.
But yeah, as I said, I don't think it's literally drugs. I think it's the drug of Californication. Like, you can try to get away from the culture, but you can't. But I also think it's also maybe literally, like, they live there and they're sucked into that all the time.
Yeah, it could be both. I mean, it could also be literal because
Yeah.
to me, like, they're talking about literal plastic surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're talking about, like being addicted, basically.
Yeah.
Addiction, which can come in many forms, but yeah.
Sort of like Guns N' Roses talking about walking to the jungle, they can get, whatever you need
Right.
there.
Yeah.
That's the same idea. Come to Los Angeles and you got everything you want.
Yeah, literally.
Be overwhelming and then consume you.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. Then they go back to unicorn, porn, and Californication again.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised.
Yeah?
Because, like I said, I mean, I've heard that song a million times and always kind of thought it was that classic, Anthony Kiedis.
Ding,
nonsense.
dang, 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 dong, dong, ding,
Yeah.
dang, dong, dong. Yeah.
Yeah, it tends to seem like a different language sometimes, or even like lazy sometimes of
Yeah.
just like fitting things in.
Mhm.
But at least in this song's case, it turns out maybe he is secretly a genius.
Some sort of weird savant. That's, he's that street preacher on the corner, the homeless guy yelling about something. And you're like, I have no idea what that guy's he's talking about Batman or something.
Yeah.
But then when you listen, you're like, oh, maybe
Like,
they're
wait
onto
a
something.
second.
Maybe the Chinese spies really are trying to steal my mind's elation.
Give this man a Pulitzer Prize.
Yeah, I found a couple quotes from the band themselves talking about this, which I thought was sort of interesting. Kiedis had, okay, let's take a half step back. So a big piece of this song, like this album, I mentioned addiction problems. Their guitarist John Frusciante had left in '94. Effectively, like, this is too much. Like, I never wanted to become an arena like rock guy.
Right.
I need to leave.
Yeah.
And he just like left mid tour, and then they brought in Dave Navarro, and he worked pretty well. He was just kind of different. He's like a more of a metal guitarist than he is a like jam guitarist, like what they would want.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, I don't know what to do. And then Flea's like, well, let's get John back.
Mm-hmm.
And Anthony's like, dude left us.
Yeah.
And he's like, just give him a try. Let's see how he's doing. He had luckily gotten cleanish. He was in a real dark spot.
Mm-hmm.
But then he came back, and so they started immediately like knocking stuff out. And said Kiedis had the lyrics done, but the band like really, really, really struggled to like get any music going for this. Apparently, it was an absolute nightmare. Like he had these lyrics, and they just couldn't get a song to match it at all, which is crazy when you listen to it because it works so well. Kiedis said that he wrote these lyrics when he was on a cleansing trip in Thailand.
Wow.
Interesting. I don't know if that would go. I guess maybe like a religious retreat of some
It might
sort.
be,
It's a weird
like
place to
like
go
a
to get clean.
secluded area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First, Shanti commented that they were big influence recording in the 90s of Californication or The Cure.
Oh, that's
Specifically, he said the title track was inspired by Carnage Visor, a track of the 1981 Faith album by The Cure.
hmm,
And so that slower, more serious
yeah,
tone.
dark.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Uh,
I believe that though because Californication is probably like the more, you know, serious toned
Mhm.
songs that they have. Usually
Yeah.
it's very goofy, high energy. So I believe that.
Yeah, he said that he and Flea specifically were like huge into 17 Seconds and Faith while working on this whole album. And so it
Interesting.
was a big impact on them on like the way they did like sound textures and melodies throughout it.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard that there's a demo version of this out there. That like really like whoa, that's we're on a full Cure kind of
Yeah.
tangent that eventually got more chili
Very
pepperified.
like early Cure too.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of before they perfected their craft, I
Yeah.
would say.
Yeah.
They're still like a little bit more punk and rowdy.
Yeah, and that's the first one that we just dove through.
Yeah.
It's Californication.
I thought it was quite eye opening.
Right. I mean, that's kind of the goal, right? As it says, to dive into something. This is a huge song. It's by no means, some obscure track. It's a title track off one of their largest albums.
Yeah.
I don't have the numbers, but I would wager this one's probably number 1 or 2 of their sales numbers.
Right. I mean, I think it's a song that everyone has heard at some point, even if you're not necessarily looking
Yeah.
for it. Because, yeah, the Chili Peppers are one of those bands where it's like, they're really contested. Some people
Mhm.
just hate them. Like, absolutely
Yeah,
hate
and I think that's
them.
why they're such a good pick, because, I mean, it's something you said, you saw on TV. You're like, oh, man, you looked at the lyrics for Give It Away. You should look at Californication, because it seems really dumb. Hardcore soft porn.
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, okay, I've actually looked at some of these before, but I'm making a mental note of that because that would actually be a great first pick because it is going to flip that viewpoint.
Yeah, the
completely
viewpoint
upside
of
down.
like, what the hell is this guy talking about?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it was a great pick, and I can think of a lot of songs where I'm just like, what are they trying
Yeah.
to say?
No, and that's perfect because we will definitely do more of these because I thoroughly enjoyed, stepping step by step. Like when I was looking at the ESP thing, I found some article that came out like around the time of this song about Chinese psychic spies. I
Yeah,
was like,
it's like a connection.
that's
yeah.
weird. The zeitgeist of, what's going on in the air at that time.
Yeah, it's like a missing puzzle piece,
Yeah.
though. Kind of provides more context because really, that's what it is. Like
Mhm.
you take each of these lyrics out of context, and they are nonsense. But
Yeah.
when you kind of give more background, it makes a lot more sense.
Right.
Turns out he's not dumb.
Not crazy.
And not crazy.
Maybe he is, but yeah, it made sense at least on paper.
Yeah.
Alrighty, well, this has been Tapes You Leave Behind. This is our first attempt at what we're calling Lyrical Autopsy,
Yep.
and we will definitely be doing this again.
More to come.
If you enjoyed it, leave a comment. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe, whatever. Share with your friends.
Yeah, let us know also if you have any suggestions for either this autopsy, lyrical autopsy, I think is what we're calling it, or just any other subjects you'd like us to cover.
Yeah.
Well, we'll yap about it.
Well, yeah, we
happily.
will definitely have about it. All right, this has been Tapes You Leave Behind. We'll catch you later.
Bye.